Good morning, 9 o'clock, Richard Calhoun, Creekside Realty, 40 years of experience working with buyers and sellers in the real estate market here in Silicon Valley. I've changed the presentation around a little bit for this week. I'm trying to give a quicker recap of what's happening. So we're going to start off with days of unsold inventory in the 22 different micro market areas. And the key is to come over here to the far right-hand side. And if these lines are all going up, that's a slowing marketplace, an increasing days of unsold inventory. Where they're flat, the market's stable. So basically these micro market here areas at the bottom are basically a stable marketplace. And these are stable in my opinion because they're so low, they're at 20 days. It's hard to get below 20 days. 20 days means we would sell every existing listing in that micro market area in 20 days at the current rate of sales. Here, you're able to be a little away from that 20, you're up around 40. So if there's more inventory coming on the market, boom, the days unsold inventory actually increases. And that's why these lines are going up, which is a slowing marketplace. Same data set, but now what we're doing is we're looking at the macro data. This is Santa Clara County, San Mateo County, single family homes, condos and townhouses for the past 5 weeks on an ongoing weekly basis. So it's a 5-week moving average. And you have the median, which is the gold standard down here. That's a 5-year number. And this is the actual data here, the blue line. So you can see for the most part, we've been following along pretty much right on top of it, which is encouraging. And this is the change from 1 week to another. Where you're looking for is whether the line is above the blue, above this zero axis right here. Zero means no change from the week before. If it's below, it's decreased, which is an increasing marketplace. If it's above, you have a slowing marketplace. So I guess the point I want to make is this peak here sort of balances out this valley. This one and that one and that one may balance out, but nothing's balancing out this. And I think it's because we're too close. The market slows down as new inventory comes on the market, which is what we're happening. And then it takes a while for the new buyers to come on the marketplace. So this is at least an indication we're slowing, but I think it may be the time lag. This is now looking at days of unsold inventory in the more normal manner of what I've been looking at since COVID. You basically have 3 lines here. You have the blue line, which is the current data. What is the days of unsold inventory? And you read that off the left-hand axis. So you can see you're below your average, but you can also see that you're going up right here. Now, we've gone up in the past. We've gone up for an extra week here. So the question now becomes, are we going to turn around and go down, or are we going to continue to go up? Can't predict the future, but you're still below 40 days of unsold inventory. You're still way into a buyer's marketplace, a seller's marketplace. And even when you hit 40, 50, it still doesn't favor the seller over the buyer. The balanced marketplace is from 40 to 80, but it's a graduated scale. So when you're at the bottom at 40, you're still going to be in that seller's marketplace. Now I'm looking at the 3 components for the past week only. What are the available inventory? This is total available inventory. That's the blue line. You can see it's growing. So it's growing away from 100%. So we're starting to gather more inventory than we have had for the past 5 years. That would tend to indicate a slowing marketplace. What about the new listings? This is the new listings just for the past week. This has been above now for several weeks. Probably starting about here, week looks like 37. We're now at week 44. So the last 7 weeks, we've been having more inventory coming on the market each and every week than we historically have had. And then the gray line is the number of new offers. This is what's essentially going off the market with the transaction. And you can see for the most part, the number of new offers has been trying to keep up with the number of new listings, which is why the total inventory is not growing that much. When you look at it on a percentage basis, the blue line right now, we're probably somewhere around about 116% of the normal inventory. So we've had low inventory for the last 5 years because it's been such a strong marketplace, but now we're having 16% more than that typical 5 years. So this is what we've looked at in the past. We're looking at just the total inventory in the blue line, the 5-year median standard, and how those 2 numbers relate to each other. And you can see the red line's been right on 100% basically until week 39. And then at week 39, it jumped up to 15%, then maybe down a little bit. And now at week 44, it's probably at the highest it's been, I would say, since Super Bowl. it's clearly a significant change in the marketplace. We have very limited inventory, so I think most people are seeing this increased inventory as a positive sign for the marketplace. Now we're doing the same thing on just the new listings. That was total inventory. This is new listings. So you can see the new listings is dropping down, which would tend to give people, wow, that's going to be an accelerating marketplace. But compare it to where the gold line is. So the gold line normally drops down earlier. It's been at a shallower rate. So, maybe what's really going on is the blue line, the current inventory, the new listings for this year, there was a lag because people that didn't sell back here were still coming on the marketplace. So the market's delayed, but this steep curve here is now steeper than the 5-year median, which means we're sort of catching up. So now that we hit Halloween and we're now approaching Thanksgiving, is this really going to continue? Potentially. Or was it the distraction of the election, which I understand CNN called this morning. So that may be over behind us. So it'd be interesting to see if buyers return to the marketplace. But for whatever reason, the sellers have been coming down more rapidly than normal, but they're coming down later in the year. So you're still, overall, you're getting 130% more listings than you would expect to get, but we're down from some number around 142%. Number of new offers, same sort of story. The data up here, you're higher than the gold line, so you're above 100%, but look at the drop the last week. I mean, we went from 135% maybe down to 117% potentially. So you've had a fairly significant drop in the last week. And again, since we're only looking at 1 week, it's going to be interesting to see what happens next week. I almost think this is going to turn around and come up. I think the country took a pause for the past week as far as real estate is concerned. This is overbidding, 2 different concepts. I'm only going to look at the frequency on this slide because I have a surprise slide behind this. So frequency of overbidding is still pretty respectable. You're over 60%. It's come down a little bit the last week. But remember, we need sale data. So this is delayed by the length of escrow, or 5 weeks. Here's the surprise slide. I brought this up because now what you can do is see what's happening in every one of the micro market areas. And when you look at this, for the most part, at the bottom here, these lines are fairly horizontal. These are fairly horizontal, but seem to have a little bit of an uptick. So that would actually tend to say that the market's accelerating more frequently for sellers to get it overbid. But, overall, I would say it's pretty flat. These have to be larger micro markets because when we looked at the previous slide, it would actually tend to say it was going down slightly. But overall, I would call it flat. But you can pick up whatever micro market area you want and see what's happening in that area. But the lowest area is down here at 40%. The highest area is up here. And so, I mean, if we went to anywhere in the country and said 40 to 80% of our sellers are getting more than their asking price in the real estate marketplace, I think they'd look at us a little cross-eyed. Now here we'll talk about the magnitude of overbidding. So it's the same slide as previously, but we're splitting them off as 2 different slides. You can see you're up here, you're about 100, I think I'm at about 103%. You can see you're pretty flat. You've had a little fluctuations, no big deal. Now you go down here and you look at each one of the micro market areas. Again, if you look at this, I would say, boom, the slope is up. And I would say this slope is up a little bit higher than the slope of the previous one, but the previous one is the conglomerate, all these averaged over. So what it must be saying is the flat ones are a larger part of the marketplace than these ones that look like they're increasing. And this, since I did it on the other one, your lowest area is somewhere right around 100% of the asking price. Since this is 99 and this is 101%, it might be 100.1, 100.2%. But the area up here, the green line, which might be easy to spot, probably Cupertino, Sunnyvale would be my guess. They're getting 106%, well, 105.5% of their asking price. So you can see, again, on average, every one of the micro market areas is getting more than their asking price. This slide is unchanged from before. You can see the red line buried back in here is now down from the peak. So that's this past week. So that means that closings that occurred from October 31st through midnight last night, November 6th, has that sale price to list price ratio, which is what this plot is at the top group. It's in the top 4 weeks, I would say, but it's probably about the 4th week back. So The 30th was a hotter marketplace, the 23rd and the 16th. 5-week escrow period of time. So basically the peak of the marketplace was about 9 weeks ago. It's still a strong marketplace. You know, you can see over here, 5% of the people are getting 113% of their asking price. Somewhere around 60% of the sellers are getting higher than their asking price. From 60% to somewhere around 72% are getting their asking price. And it's only these 28% over here are getting below their asking price. This is the same data, but now instead of going back for 20 weeks, I only go back for 12 weeks, clean it up a little bit so you can see the dashed lines, which are the last 4 weeks. So, you know, the red line is the lowest of the solid line. So we are slowing down a little bit for the closings, which is fine. It's better than the dashed lines, which are basically weeks 5 through, I guess, 11. These are 1 through 4, so it's got to be 5 through 8 are the dashed lines, and the dotted lines are 9 through 12. And the dates are up here. Now, what we're looking at is the same thing, and we're comparing this week's data to, which is the macro data. We're comparing that to the past 5 Octobers, which is Santa Clara County single-family homes. So it's not a direct comparison. It's not a direct apples and apples comparison. Also, since we're looking at, I'm sorry, I upgraded it to November since we're in November, but the caution on November, these single family homes are from November 1st through December 5th. And if you say we normally slow down going into the end of the year, which is a true statement, these would be lower normally. So even though the current November, which is basically the last week, which actually includes October 31st, is basically the second hottest November we've ever had. I'm just a little cautious that I think as this goes on in the line, we'll see this move down just because the market normally cools, because this is not a 5-week number, the red line that I'm talking about. But if you just look at this and you compare November data to November, since we're now at November 7th, data through November 6th, you know, we're having a strong month, so you can't deny that. We've taken away some of the data points, so now we only have the last 12 weeks. Up on here is something that's noteworthy. One of the things I've always talked about is when we have an insult to the marketplace, buyers aren't willing to overbid. So you can see down here, the red is significantly above, you know, basically from, let's call it from maybe 45% of the marketplace to 100% of the marketplace. The red line is above all the other data points except for 2017, which is an exceptional year. But up here, you can see that normally you'd expect the trend, if behavior was normal, you'd expect it to be way up here. But because the buyers are hesitant to super overbid, you have a much more conservative overbid at the high end. And that's something that's significant to be aware of. You know, you don't want to underprice your home by 15% because the chances you get that are pretty slim, even if you would have gotten that in a normal marketplace. So just word to the wise. This is single family data plotted graphically so you can see it. Each area is representative. This is days on unsold inventory. This is the number of days. The different micro markets are all labeled here. Once you get down below 24.5 days, you have the maximum saturated red. That's why there's so much of this deep red. It's not that every area is doing the same. It just, once I drop below 24.5, which I really didn't expect to drop below for any extended period of time, I've maximized my color. From 50 to 70 days, there is no color. And at 121 days, which we're nowhere close to, I maximize my blue color. The one shade here, the expensive areas of the San Mateo County, Atherton, Menlo Park, Woodside, Portola Valley, is the slowest marketplace we have, and it's still at 68.6, so it's below 70. You can't argue that this is a strong marketplace. This is the frequency of overbidding. How often do sellers get overbidding? And again, you can see my scale. Once you get down to 20, you'd be maximized blue. So from 42 to 20, the lower the number is, the more blue you get. At 42.5, there's no color. At 75, I maximize blue. So you can see that the light shade of blue is at 38%. You can see that's just below 42. So that's why it's a light shade of blue. You come up here to Milpitas and Blossom Valley, Santa Teresa, which is this 81.5 4, that's greater than 75, this color is saturated. So this marketplace is actually hotter than I would expect. And I actually misguessed because earlier I said that it was probably Cupertino-Sunnyvale. You can see Cupertino-Sunnyvale is only 72.7. So even though there's 10 days of unsold inventory difference between those two areas, the colors are very similar, and that's because it doesn't change until Cupertino-Sunnyvale dipped below 75. This is the magnitude of overbidding. And you might say, wow, look how red this all is, and look how subtle this red is. And that's because I set this up for a normal marketplace where I don't saturate my red color until 110. And that's not unreasonable to expect that based on past performance. But because of the insult to the marketplace, this is much more subdued. Now, I haven't done this long term, so maybe I should have done a number a little more conservative, like 107.5, but that was my best guess. But you can just look at the redness here versus the redness here. You just have to adjust your scale for each, but the trends are the same, and you got the essentially no color here because you're at 100%, 100.1%, and 100% equals no color. The reason 96.5 equals no more is my saturated color for blue is prices are a lot more resistant to going down. So I go up 10% above 100%, but I only go down 3.5% because that extra resistance to go a penny below the seller's asking price. It's just the phenomenon of the marketplace. Basically, at about 2.5%, almost all the sellers end up have to relisting the property at a lower price or taking a price reduction to get their property sold. This is median sold price. The blue, the darker the blue, the lower the priced area. So it's not price changes or anything else. Your zero color is up here in Redwood City. San Mateo is very pale pink, along with Mountain View, Sunnyvale. Los Gatos, Saratoga is redder. So as the red color gets more red, the prices go up. As the blue color gets more blue, prices go down. And again, the prices are over here for you. The median price for the micro market equals no color, which is the Redwood City area. So Redwood City in this map most likely will always be white in color. San Mateo will always be a little bit blue. So the colors won't change, but it gives you an idea of just looking at it. Where can I find a cheaper house? Where can I find a more expensive house? Usually it's the cheaper end. So you can see anywhere areas where there's the blue is where prices are typically cheaper. Right here is sort of the center of the marketplace, and that's where the prices are the highest. And I guess that's a summary. So with that, I'll take a pause, see if there's any questions, and then try to go into a little bit more detail. I will continue on, seeing nobody having questions. And here, if you have questions, feel free to interrupt as I go. So now what we're looking at is days of unsold inventory, which is the leading indicator. We're looking at macro data, which is San Mateo County, Santa Clara County, condos and townhouses all combined. We're going back a little bit in time. We're going back 29 days, which is 5 weeks essentially. So we're back at October the 10th. Now we're just move forward so you can see how the market changes. There's the 17th. And just a word of warning, in the expensive areas here, I had a color code area, color coding error. So this should have been a real pale blue instead of the dark blue. So it should have been much closer to here. This is at 78 days. This is at 70. So this should have been a paler color. All the other areas were correct. This is correct now. I think I got it about 2 weeks back. So sorry about that. Let's just go through and look at overall, ignoring this one little area. If it gets redder, the market's accelerating. If it gets pinker, the market's slowing down. So there's where we are today. You can see now that Atherton is fairly blue, but it's now at 80 days of unsold inventory. So you're above the 70 days of no color. This is the actual data for this morning, which is data through midnight last night. You can come back and pick up any micro market area that you're interested in. This is single family homes in Santa Clara County. This is San Mateo County. Here's a little bit of a spreadsheet on the definitions of the different terms. This is the condos and townhouses for both marketplaces. This now is looking at data for October. My October is not a calendar October, but it's from October 1st through and including November 4th. So I do 35 days. On a 30-day month like September, I go from September 1st through and including October the 5th. So my end date changes, but it's always 35 days from the first of the month we're looking at. So here what I'm doing is I'm comparing the single family homes, Santa Clara County only. And so and the reason you do that is that's the single biggest micro market area. And if you look at this, you start picking up some points. And we don't look at average days on the market and median. And I'll just say this for a second though. When the average at 54 is much above the 25, what it's really telling you is there's two different marketplaces. There's the marketplace of the people who come on the market and get off, which is why the median tends to be so much lower than the average. But where it really becomes more noticeable is when you jump from here down to the offers that are accepted. So out of the properties that are actually selling, the median days on market is only 8, and the average days on the market is only 16.7. So that speaks of volumes. Up here, what's on the marketplace has been on the market for 57 days. What's selling is selling in under 17 days. So that means a property comes on the market, if it's priced right, if there's no negatives about the property, boom, it's sold. Sellers need to realize that if they're getting past 3 weeks, which sounds awfully short, the market's rejected them. They're going to be up here for 4 days. Once you're past about 2 weekends, I think it's time to reevaluate what's going on. Is there something you can do about the property? Did you misread the marketplace? What's going on? You know, that huge difference between what's on the marketplace and what's going into escrow is very telling. Days of unsold inventory, everything in the marketplace would be sold in 26 days. What's on the market's averaging 25 days. I mean, that just tells you right there, it's overpriced. Something's wrong with it. The market's rejecting it for whatever reason. Median list price is 1.375. A lot of people have a hard time saying things like, you know, you come up here to the median asking price, 1.7. Years ago, I had a person that would argue with me, and that means that the average seller is taking almost a $400,000 haircut on their price. No, that's not what it means. It means that the higher end prices, the higher end homes is what's not selling. Now, that could be your Menlo Park, Atherton type homes, or it could be your overpriced turkeys in every geographical marketplace. It's basically both. If you have an overpriced house, you're above what it's going to sell for. That pulls up the average list price. You're also noticing that San Mateo County is normally the fastest micro market area, the general county area. This year, Santa Clara, which tends to be lower priced, is faster. That tends to keep the higher, more expensive homes on the marketplace for longer, which pulls up your median. The other thing to pull up here is look at the volume of inventory. To compare apples to apples, since we're not very far past November 4th yet, look at the red line, which is why it's highlighted and color-coded. We did 1,196 transactions in the month that started on October 1st, or the 5 weeks that started October 1st. If you start coming back, you got to come all the way back to 2012 and 2011 to have more activity than that. That's huge. This is the highest volume October, or 5 weeks following October 1st, that we've had. Then if you look at the amount of overbidding, which I guess you have to come down to closings, you're at 103%. You look at that, you got to come back to, you know, basically somewhere around the 15th. So close to the 15th, you know, yeah, technically we still beat it. We beat the 14th, we beat the 13th. You know, so if you really want to get that, you have to keep coming back. You have to keep coming back. And lo and behold, we have an all-time record high. So for the month of October, my 5-week moving month, we've had a record high number of sale price to list price ratios. On average, the seller got more than they're asking for. So let's go down and look at the frequency of overbidding. You're at 66% basically. Boom, you don't have to go back very far at all. 17 oh, I overlooked it. I thought that was 02. So 17 also caught me. So that's a nice reason to have more than one data point. So 17 was the all-time record high, which makes a lot more sense because that curve was way up. So 17 was the exceptional year. Basically, it started in about August of 17, lasted through about April of 2018. We just were absolutely crazy. But other than that, you keep coming back and you know, you're close but not making it there. Again, that goes along with right now, being the second best October we've ever had, which I don't think a lot of people would understand. Median price 1,450. So I think it was 1,400 last month. It had been around 1,400 basically all the way back to shelter in place. It looks like the median is now starting to show some of that appreciation. And closings at 1,160. If you look at that, and actually let's look at 17 carefully because I blew it last time. Okay, so I'm at 11. You have to come down to this 35-day number. The reason the closings are all lower back here is I changed, it looks like I thought it was earlier than that. At some point I changed from a calendar month to a 35-day moving average because I noticed the monthly cycle was becoming very insignificant compared to the weekly, and I like to get rid of cycles in my data when I can, and that's why I did the shift. Here you have 5 weeks of data. Here you only have essentially 30 days, so depending on how the calendar falls. But if you come back down to 35 days, that's consistent across all the data points. The only caveat is November is recent, so I don't have the late reportings. So this number, the 1160, is going to be conservative. So now if you go back and look at that, comparing for it, you're getting 1125, you're getting close. So now you have to come all the way back to 2009 to have a bigger year, and then all the way back to 2005. So again, what my point is, we're having way more volume than we would expect to have, but we also had that shortage volume created by shelter in place. Now we're going to look at each one of the micro markets. We have 11 different metrics that we look at. Each metric has 5 different graphs. We're only going to look at one graph in each metric. So this one, and this is why we're going to only look at one graph. Here you really can't see what's going on because there's so much data point. Yes, I did color Santa Clara County red so it shows up, but it's still pretty hard to see that data coming through here. You know, it came down, it improved, and it's been basically flat. So this is where we're going to talk about it. Red is Santa Clara County, gray is San Mateo County, and yellow is Santa Clara County condo townhouses. So the big takeaway here is the condo townhouse market was doing the best before shelter in place. It got hit real hard and it's now doing the worst. Santa Clara County was doing better than San Mateo County, which is unusual, but we've been that way before shelter in place for probably about a year or so, and we're still that way afterwards. So the marketplace for single family home really did not get impacted long term. Yes, there was a huge disruption here. This is when the marketplace would have been absolutely on fire. Would the market have been hotter without shelter in place? Probably. No way to ever know. Now we're looking at frequency of overbidding. Same color coordination. Condos were doing the worst before, and this is the frequency of overbidding. They're doing the worst after. San Mateo County and Santa Clara County were doing identical, essentially. There was a little bit of separation before shelter in place hit, because remember, I'm looking back in time. So basically data on March the 14th right here should be accurate and not impacted by shelter in place. But now what you can see is Santa Clara County is doing a little bit hotter, a little more frequent overbidding than San Mateo County. This is magnitude of overbidding. Here, the same concept, but now look at what's happened. Condos and townhouses were on the bottom. They're on the bottom. It was surprising to see the magnitude was at 99%. So sellers were getting less at the beginning of the part of the year. Right at shelter in place, they were getting about 102%. They're getting less than they were at the peak, but they're getting better than they were at the beginning of the year. And that's basically what the story is for all 3 counties. San Mateo County and Santa Clara County are on top of one another as far as the overbidding. That, I believe, is because the amount of overbidding, the degree of overbidding, the magnitude of overbidding is going to be depressed a little bit because of the shakeup we were just through. This is median days on market. You don't tell a whole lot. This plummet down here was not the market going crazy. This was the MLS freezing the days on the market during the shelter in place. So basically you went from 8 days in Santa Clara County to 10 days in San Mateo County. Santa Clara County is at 8 days. San Mateo County is basically at 11, hitting a little bit of 12 here. The condo townhouse market was at 8 days. It's now up to 14 days. So it's basically taken the hardest hit. And the reason for that, from what I'm observing, is buyers, consumers in general, and that's part of what's driving the volume, are spending more time in their home. Because they're spending more time in their home, they want more space. They're spending work time as well as social family time there. They need an extra room. So they need that extra privacy. They don't want to hear the condo activity from next door going on. So they're moving away from condos, they're moving into bigger single family homes, and they're trading off a longer commute that they don't have to do as often and isn't as bad. Whether that's a wise choice or not, I don't know, but it clearly appears to me that's the choices the consumers are making. If you're an engineer type person that can work from home long term, it makes sense. If you're someone that's going to have to go back to the office, you're going to be paying that price with the long commute, because I don't think you're going to get up and move back. This is available inventory. My available inventory is different than most people's available inventory. I do not count pending continue to show as available inventory. That, in my opinion, is very misleading to the real condition of the marketplace. The prime example is that at the beginning part of the year, there's very little inventory. Boom, a lot of homes come on the marketplace. That creates a lot of sales. You get a lot of pending continue to show activity. That number goes up, but the number of available listings for the buyer to come in and actually buy is going down. So you get the wrong result. And anytime you get the wrong result, the data is bad. It's misrepresenting the marketplace. And that's why I do it. So I look at without an accepted offer of any kind that's been reported. So single family homes in Santa Clara County is obviously the highest, which is why we can talk about it with all this data. It gets pulled away. And then you have condos and townhouses, and then you have San Mateo County single family homes. And what's interesting is you go back here, the volume of the two were basically the same. The volume of San Mateo County single family homes now is less than the condos in Santa Clara County. And that contradicts almost what I just said. Not really. What's happening is the people in San Mateo County are leaving and they're coming down to Santa Clara County, which is why Santa Clara County is doing better and faster than San Mateo County. And they're doing that because they can get that bigger house for the same price. They're going over to the East Bay. So they're fleeing the desirable commute places because desirable commute is not as valuable anymore. And then you can look at all the different micro market areas down here. Same concept with the number of offers accepted in the past 5 weeks. You can see Santa Clara County is way up top. You can see the flip here. Condos were in Santa Clara County were a higher number than San Mateo County single family homes. Now it's reversed. San Mateo County single family homes is doing better than condos in Santa Clara County. So again, it's single family homes are taking priority over condos, and Santa Clara County is taking priority over San Mateo County. Not what we have historically seen, but it's what we have. Closing, same concept, just delayed because whatever offers are accepted become your closing. Again, the trend is pretty straightforward. This is lagged by about 5 weeks because of the length of time it takes to close an escrow. Now we're looking at the sold price. We're going to move on and look at the micro market areas. Everybody, including myself, I think we were expecting to see some sort of price correction for shelter in place. It's just not there. This is the cheapest 10% in the three areas that we've been talking about: Santa Mateo County in the gray, Santa Clara County in the red, and condo townhouses in Santa Clara County in the yellow. You might argue that condo townhouses dipped a little bit here, but that was short-lived. I think it was just a freeze on the marketplace. But basically, you're higher. Every one of these numbers is higher or in the same. You could make the argument that San Mateo County was higher back here. I actually believe what happened was San Mateo County overshot the marketplace. People were expecting the market to take off, and that's why this was so short-lived. I think it was more that than the COVID shelter in place. This little peak here, it's just a fluke of the data place, and this would have been just before shelter in place. Now you're looking at the 50 percentile price. It's settled down a little bit, but the trends are basically the same. Nothing really noteworthy. You can see Santa Clara County is higher than back here at shelter in place. San Mateo County maybe a little bit lower. Condo townhouses are basically at the same level. Now we're looking at the top end. You get a little bit more bounce at the top end, especially in San Mateo County because there's so few listings and the prices vary. So was this really a huge dip down in price? No, it was just a market mix, I think, more than anything. Is this a huge dip down? I don't think so. It's just a market mix. Same thing with Santa Clara County. It's dropping down. Now, maybe there's a shift away from expensive homes. That might even argue that if people are fleeing San Mateo County and they're willing to commute to save a few dollars to get a bigger house, they may be getting a cheaper house. So maybe that is really happening. Duration of close of escrow, nothing really noteworthy other than, we're closing houses, 50% of them in 30 days. So we're not changed significantly. Yeah, we were down at 25 in San Mateo County. We were 27 in Santa Clara County. We were 28 in condos. We're all at 30. I still personally like to write my escrows at 35 when I can get away with it. So just to recap and think of anyone that has questions, this is the base URL here in the green. You add 2020-1107, the date code to get to the archive, which gets posted usually about 3 o'clock. If you want the handouts, they are posted. I try to get them up about 8:45. I got them up about 8:58 this morning, but they're there. You can go and grab them, and you can grab future presentations here. Anyone have a question for me, or should I go on to monthly data? I'm not seeing anyone unmute. And the only monthly data I think I have is this data right here. So you can see this is October. This is data through the 5th. So I grabbed it on the morning of the 6th. You can pick whatever data point you want to look at. Inventory is 2035. You can see that that's reasonable in line with what we're at historically. You can see that 3.88 bedrooms is reasonable in what's been on the marketplace historically. You come down to offers accepted. You look at average days on the market, 16.7, and you go, whoa, whoa. Hey, I finally did get to ring the bell. Ding. That does appear to be an all-time record, because even here in 17, you were sitting at 20.3 days. So we're faster than we were in 17. We're not seeing the rapid price appreciation. I think that's partly because the buyers are hesitant. Median days on market, 8. Probably 17 is going to be my best at 10. I have a 13. I have no other single digits. That just gives you an idea on how quick the market is. And when the days on market are really slow, that means it's been slow for a long period of time. Because if you come down to DUI, that tells you how quickly the marketplace everything would disappear. So it's going to take 26 days to disappear. If you go to 17, it was only 22 days. So 17 was a faster marketplace, but October was close to August. So we just entered into that fast marketplace. And so the market was faster than the median days on the marketplace. We've now been in the marketplace for a long period of time. So you're more stable. So maybe it doesn't make sense the way I explained it, but it is possible to have a quicker median days on market now and a slower DUI than you did in 2017, even though they're measuring sort of the same thing. They're measuring slightly different aspects of it. And that's one of the reasons I have so many data points, is to better understand what's going on. Median list price really doesn't matter, but it's the highest. If you get down here, it's days of sales per day of 34.2. Jump back to 17, since that's where our records are. That was only 28. You jump back to 16, that's 31. You jump back to 15, that was 32. I mean, you have to go back here to 12. In 12, when we were recovering from the recession, you had more activity because you had a lot of foreclosures. You had a lot of investors coming on the marketplace. You can see 42 days, 44. We've also in the Valley overall have been really slowing down. And that was one of the reasons Prop 19 was put on the ballot, was to try to stimulate volume a little bit. It'd be interesting to see if that really does it. Then that is volume here at 1196. You can see it was 1232. You can come back and look at the square footage. And this is interesting. You have the highest square footage, I think, ever at 1799. So this is the square footage of the homes that are selling. So now you're looking at only single-family homes, only in Santa Clara County. The mix has not changed dramatically, but it's got a higher square footage, not by a lot, but when you're talking about the median overall, that starts becoming significant. So that does tend to say that people are trying to go for that larger square footage now that they're sheltering in place. If you come down to closings, you get the overbid, you're at 103.4%. And here's where you see that 17 outbids us. The only reason I think 17 is outbidding us, at least by that magnitude, is because of the cap that buyers put on themselves after an insult to the marketplace. Frequency at 66%. It was at 75% back in 17. And it's worth noting, 27% of the sellers right now are still taking less than their asking price. That was only 17% back in 17. But your prices, we're now at 1450. So we're at an all-time record high. Yeah, we were at 1318, but 1450 is way higher than that. You can see the 90 percentile price. And again, if you look at square footage is way down here at 1857. And if you look back, you have an 1811, but I don't think you're going to beat that. So you have the highest square footage ever closing right now. So yeah, the price is up, so is the square footage. People are going for that larger square footage. Number of closings is going to be probably pretty good because we're delayed by about 4 weeks. If this is when the market's normally slowing down, 1160, how far back do you have to go? You have to go way back here to 2005, which was before the 2006 meltdown in February, to get the volume higher than that. And it's only going to be 4 years. It's going to be 2005, 4, 3, and way back here in 2000 where you had more volume. And see if there's any questions. And if there's no questions, I will end the meeting. I'm not seeing anyone unmute themselves. So everybody have a good week. See you next week. And next week I will go into the graphical data for the month of October. Bye for now.